Hi, Terry here, and welcome to Times Gone Tech. Hey, today I'm going to make even yet a few more stupid people really mad at me, so don't go away. Now, this video is really long, and it's mostly talking, but there will be some gunfire, so I hope you find the subject interesting enough to stick with me through to the end. Also, in order to keep it brief, because I have a lot to cover, please bear with me if I end up talking faster than normal. A couple of years ago, I presented a video about um, black powder firearms for everyday carry personal self-defense. In that video, I presented 7 categories and the reasons that somebody might choose to carry black powder over conventional firearms. Now, understand, I'm not talking about convicted felons. I'm talking about people who have a choice. They can go into a gun store and they can buy a Glock 9mm, but instead they're choosing to go on the internet and order a Remington New Model Army 1858. Now, a few people took exception to that. They thought that I was actually personally promoting and advising people to choose to carry black powder over conventional, which I wasn't. But they actually got downright mad at me. I was even called incredibly irresponsible for even suggesting that black powder was a viable alternative to conventional firearms. I didn't say that. The video was actually based on something that I had noticed, which is a small but growing number of people around the world, but here in the United States especially, are in fact choosing to do that. And that piqued my curiosity. If black powder is as bad a choice for everyday personal self-defense carry as the Anti-Black Powder League are insisting it is, then why would people actually choose to carry black powder instead of conventional? What kind of data, facts, logic were they using to arrive at that conclusion? Today, the cost of both conventional and black powder are pretty close to the same, so that really can't be a reason. So that kind of got my curiosity going. What's going on here? By the way, that phenomena is still occurring. Every year, there seems to be a few more people throughout the country deliberately making the choice to carry black powder revolvers for their everyday carry self-defense instead of conventional. So I sat down and I wrote out 7 categories that actually I think would be good categories for anybody, especially if they're thinking about carrying a firearm for the first time, or if they've maybe just started, or maybe they've even been carrying for a while and they haven't really thought about it. 7 categories that a person could look at to help them make the choice as to what type of firearm to use. Now, I'm going to refer to my notes here so I don't forget anything. You're going to see me looking at these a lot today too, because like I said, I've got a lot to go through. I don't want to leave anything out. Now, those 7 categories were rate of fire, which also includes fire capacity, stopping power, penetration, reliability, reload time, ammunition availability, both now and in the future, maintenance, and privacy, the lack of government intrusion into our lives. For now, anyway, in many states, you can go on the internet and you can buy a black powder firearm and have it sent right to your front door. No background check, no paperwork, nothing. Now, understand up front, I was not saying that cap and ball is superior or even equal to conventional firearms in any of those categories. I just decided to play devil's advocate and see if I could make any kind of a case for actually choosing black powder over conventional. So, while admitting that it might be true that a Glock 9mm can be reloaded much faster than this Colt Walker can be reloaded, it has a much greater fire capacity and it has a much greater effective range. Is that really an advantage to me, or is that something that I really need for my personal everyday self-defense? Well, I went with the FBI and the 333 rule and said, no, it doesn't. It's not an advantage to me. Yeah, it's true. I can reload a Glock in 3 seconds, and it takes about 3 to 5 minutes to reload this. Big deal. The 333 rule says that the vast majority of civilian-involved self-defense shootings will be resolved in 1 to 3 rounds fired in 1 to 3 seconds at 1 to 3 yards. So do I really need 140-yard capacity? No. Do I really need a 20-round capacity? No. Do I really need to be able to reload in 3 seconds? No. And then I went on and did that with reliability, ammunition, stopping power, and so on and so forth. Now, the comments that I got on that video were disappointingly sparse, for one, And obviously, as expected, most of them were from the anti-black powder union. I did get a couple of comments, though, pro-black powder from people. So don't think I'm just making all this up. I actually got a few comments from people who are carrying black powder and thought it was a good idea. And we're finally glad to see somebody presenting their side of it in a video, which I'm not saying is my side. I'm saying it's their side. Now, as to the black powder critics, well, let's just say the few comments that I got just based on their comments, let's just say they don't come across as the sharpest knives in the drawer, if you get my hint. In fact, the vast majority of the comments that I got were actually a little better than, "That's really stupid, man." And while adamant that cap and ball is a really bad choice, not a single anti-black powder person was able to present a single well thought out logical reason why black powder is a bad choice for personal self-defense, and then support it with relevant facts. It's like all they could either do is just say, "That's really stupid, man," or repeat the same tired old bullshit like a broken record. Cap jams, cap jams, cap jams, cap jams. A couple of viewers didn't seem to realize that writing in all caps with 3 punctuation points after every sentence and clearly having no idea what spell check is for did not make their opinions sound more credible. One person suggested that when these things are drawn out and the trigger is pulled, half the time, man, they won't even shoot. While another equally insisted that, oh, these things is just plagued with cap jams, misfires, and chain fires. Both clearly not speaking from personal experience. The point that I was making, and I took this up in the reliability category, was that if maintained and loaded properly, black powder revolvers are extremely reliable. They are not prone to misfires, cap jams, or chain fires. And if you get a lot of misfires, cap jams, and chain fires with your black powder firearm, then that's only because you don't know how to load yours properly. And just because you don't know how to load yours properly doesn't mean the rest of us do too. And before you start pounding away on your keyboard, I've been shooting black powder for 150 years. Don't go tell me I don't know how to load my own gun. Hey, if you're getting a lot of misfires, cap jams, and chain fires, you don't know how to load your own gun. Done and dusted. Okay? Stop blaming the technology. Only a poor carpenter blames their tools. So while both sides of this issue are obviously pro-Second Amendment supporters, and both sides do agree that everybody has a right to carry a handgun in public for personal self-defense, the anti-black powder union, who can discuss revolver versus semi-auto, double action versus single auto, and different types of calibers for an hour, can't string 3 coherent sentences together explaining why black powder is a bad choice. But there are several reasons that are good reasons against carrying black powder. There are some cons to it. And one in particular that actually applies to all handguns, not just black powder. It does apply to black powder, but it applies to all handguns, which anybody who's going to carry any handgun, especially black powder, and I'll explain why on that, they really need to be aware of. Once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away, the FBI came up with what they call the 333 rule. Now, that is, the vast majority of civilian-involved shootings are resolved with 1 to 3 rounds, fired in 1 to 3 seconds at 1 to 3 yards. Well, a few years later, a couple of police officers got kind of curious about that. And they asked, does that apply to all handguns or only certain handguns? All calibers? Does that apply only to semi-automatics, or does it include revolvers? Does it include single action, double action? Is there any situations where the 333 rule does not apply and this whole thing just falls apart? And if yes, where is that threshold? What is that limit or minimum requirement? So they conducted a study very similar to the one the FBI did. Now, Most people, when they're going to conduct a study about firearm effectiveness, they shoot into ballistics gel, and then they've got a standard formula. They plug the results in, and that tells them yay or nay. The problem with that is that ballistics gel does not go into shock and does not get pissed off. Neither do watermelons or paper plates. People do. So these two cops decided to look at actual self-defense shootings. How many of these self-defense shootings were resolved with 1 to 3 rounds versus how many weren't? What were the calibers being used? What was the distance? Did any fail? If they failed, how badly did they fail? And what they came up with was what I call an FPE threshold. Now, the FPE stands for foot-pounds of energy. And this is a minimum amount of energy that must be delivered into the target per round fired in order for the 333 rule to apply consistently. Anything below that threshold and the 333 rule stops applying as consistently, and at a certain point it actually begins to fail. Now, the interesting thing is that as one goes down below that minimum FPE threshold, the effectiveness of the handgun drops off sharply. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not a linear relationship. And what that means is the farther below the threshold we get, the greater the odds are that that particular handgun is going to fail completely to stop the attack, and you'll be able to fire every round you have into the guy, and he's just going to keep coming at you. That minimum threshold is equivalent to a 9mm. Now, the .380 caliber is the single most popular selling caliber of self-defense bullet in America right now today. Yes, the 9mm is very popular. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it isn't. But if you look around and look at the sales, you'll find out that there are more people carrying those little .380 pocket guns than are carrying a 9mm out on their hip. They're just becoming more popular, mainly because of the ease of concealment. You can just carry one in your pocket and nobody even notices. But it's a .380. Now, the .380 is less powerful than the 9mm. So it fails the FPE threshold. Barely, but it still fails. And there's something else we need to consider about this whole thing, this 333 rule. And that is that, listen to the wording, in the vast majority of civilian-involved self-defense shootings, the vast majority of. It's not saying all of them. It's saying most of them. So there are times when the 333 rule, even if the caliber's right, even if the firearm's right, even if the distance is right, the 333 rule fails to stop the attack, and it just comes on at us. 99% plus times it works. It's that 1% of the time it doesn't work that we need to be concerned about. An 18-year-old man can beat a 70-year-old man to death with his bare hands and can take a lot more physical punishment. The odds are that 99% of the time, this little pocket gun will stop an attack in 1 to 3 rounds. It will. Now, the meat target tests I've done on it show that. This thing is quite capable of killing somebody up close and personal with 1 round. And I'm not talking a week later from infection either, numbnuts. I mean dead before their faces hit the dirt. Within the 333 rule, 99% of the time, it's going to stop everybody with 1 to 3 rounds with 2 rounds left over as a backup. That 1% of the time that it doesn't work, it's going to fail completely. I could fire all 5 rounds into the guy, and he's still going to be coming at me with a full head of steam. And I could end up finding myself in a fight I'm not equipped to handle. But many calibers of conventional handguns today also fail the FPE threshold. The .380, the .32, the .25, the .22 long rifle. And these are all popular rounds that people choose to carry. And they all fail that minimum FPE threshold. Now, most black powder firearms fail also, but not all. This Colt Walker has the stopping power of a Colt Python. And this 1860 Army is equivalent to a 9mm. And yes, both have sent plenty of bad guys to the boneyard. And I'm not talking a week later from infection either, numbnuts. I mean dead before their faces hit the dirt. But a lot of bad guys kept on fighting too. There are verifiable records of people being shot 6, 7, even 8 times or more and continuing to press the attack. Cole Younger was shot 11 times in the failed Northfield, Minnesota raid during that raid, and his attempts to escape. He even had a round lodged behind his right eye. He was captured, and even without antibiotics, he survived. And that's not counting the wounds that he sustained during the Civil War. When he died in 1916, he had 14 bullets, all lead, still in his body, and he still lived to be an old man. Another person is Davis Tutt of the famous Hickok-Tutt shootout in Springfield, Missouri in 1865. Not going to bore you with the details, but the two faced each other on the streets in Springfield, Missouri, out on the square. Hickok shot Tutt once right in the heart, and Tutt lived long enough to call out to his friends, "Boys, I've been killed." Ran across the street, up onto the steps of the courthouse, then back down the steps, back out into the street. Then he fell over dead. Now imagine what would have happened if he'd stood his ground and he'd fired back at Hickok. Where would Hickok be, huh? They could both be sitting together side by side in the same cemetery. Some people are just like that. They're just born tough as nails and mean as a timber rattler. Now that can happen today as well, and it has happened. People in combat situations have had their hearts blown completely out with an M16 and continued fighting back for another 30 seconds before their brains shut down, ran out of oxygen. They just didn't go into shock for one reason or another. But both the Python and the Glock are more easily concealable. They're just as effective. They both meet the FPE minimum requirements. They do reload faster, and they're a lot lighter and easier to carry around all day, every day. And while a few black powder firearms can meet the FPE minimum, none of them can make all of those claims at the same time. And while easily capable enough, man, this is a lot of shooting iron to be carrying around all day, every day. Wouldn't draw much notice up at the Walmart either, would it? Well, maybe not the Walmart in my town anyway. So there is a good reason, several of them actually, I haven't gotten to a couple of them, for choosing not to carry black powder and going with conventional. But it has nothing to do with the mythical cap jams, chain fires, or wet powder. Properly loaded cap and ball revolvers are extremely reliable. The few black powder revolvers that do meet the FPE threshold are going to be big, heavy, you can't conceal them, and they're just not going to be convenient to carry around all day like this Colt Walker. And those go along with the really good reasons. If you want to carry something concealed so you don't draw a lot of attention to yourself, you can't carry this. Also, with conventional firearms, you have a much greater range of choices and options than you have with black powder. With black powder, you take it or leave it. With modern, you can choose the type of action, the size of the gun, the caliber to suit your hand, your physical requirements, your lifestyle, your needs. So that greater range of option is a very good reason for going with conventional over black powder. There is really 3 choices with black powder maybe, and that's it. But there's another variable that we have to factor into the equation here that I think everybody's missing. The late, great Paul Harrell had said in several of his videos that whenever he was at a public event, and this could be a shooting range, a competition, a gun show, just anywhere where the general public was assembled with firearms in mind, that how they like to approach him and show him their personal everyday self-defense handguns that they like to carry. And understandably so, people are proud of their firearms, right? And they like to show them off, especially to somebody like Paul Harrell, who is an expert on the subject. And he commented about how amazed he was at how many of these guns had not been fired in so long, the lead in the bullets had corroded white. Now, that takes years. These guys have been carrying these firearms around for years and never even pulled the trigger one time. Even somebody armed with this 44 caliber snub-nose revolver has a far better chance of adequately defending themselves in an armed confrontation than somebody with a Glock 9mm who hasn't even pulled the trigger in 10 years. Or Like a woman I dated once, a few times actually, many years ago, bought a 38 special to defend herself against home invaders. And then she kept it stored unloaded with a trigger lock on it in a bedroom closet on the first floor, and the ammunition locked in an ammunition safe up in a bedroom closet on the second floor. Why? She was afraid of having a loaded gun in the house. She was afraid somebody would break in, find it, and use it against her. But in all fairness, I also have to say, if that Glock owner also goes to the range and throws some lead downrange at least once a week, for half an hour every week consistently, the odds are decidedly in their favor as far as effectiveness goes. As far as its ability to meet our main objective, stop the attack, this 44 caliber Army is capable and powerful enough, and it is also extremely reliable if loaded properly. This 1847 Colt Walker easily exceeds the FPE minimum. Bless your heart if you can carry this thing around all day, every day, and not get a few stares. This Colt 1860 Army and the Remington 1858 New Model Army Remington, if you're a Remington fan, both meet the FPE minimum requirements. Now, good luck trying to carry this down in your pants under your shirt. Yeah, right. This 44 caliber snub nose fails the FPE minimum requirements, as does this 1851 pocket gun, which seriously fails it. Now, that is not to say that these are ineffective, they won't stop any attack, and they're just absolutely useless bullshit. No, 99+9% of the time, these will stop the attack. It's that 1% they don't stop the attack that we really need to be concerned about, that bipedal rattlesnake, okay? If either one of these two fail, they're going to seriously fail. And even if you got a 380, 22 long rifle, 32, doesn't matter. You empty every round you have into somebody, and they're still coming at you with a full head of steam on, that is not a good place to be standing when you're 70 years old. Okay, so there are my arguments against carrying black powder. You see how easy that was? How come none of y'all thought of it? Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
I'll be back.